Dr. Singhvi, good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining Times Television Network. Since you don many hats, Dr. Singhvi, let me just take you back a few months when the Supreme Court said that the Speaker was entirely flawed in allowing the whip to be appointed from the Shinde Sena faction in the Maharashtra matter, and referred the Speaker's case to a larger bench. You came out of the Supreme Court hearing and you said that what moral or legal right does this government has to continue even for one more minute? So, Dr. Singhvi, if that is the case, then what the addenda to this government, these new MLAs who are joining, the new faction who is joining, I mean, what are we looking at legally, politically, ethically, in your view, since you don many hats?
Look, first let me start by saying that I will, of course, deal with your question immediately. Since I am already involved in this case, both professionally and otherwise as an advisor, I will not be able to deal with the nitty-gritty of the strategy or give you details which is not fair for me to share with you. But let me start by saying legally what is the position and then add politically. Or let me turn it the other way around. Let me start politically. See, politically, there are 3 or 4 facets. A, you use the word ethics. You use the word generally what is the political perception. Now, there are 3 or 4 facets. Facet number 1, this government has now elevated itself to the world's best university with the highest degree of postdoctoral, even beyond PhD, in manipulating majorities. You have seen this from Karnataka starting long ago, through Goa onto the northeast and in Maharashtra earlier. Now today you have possibly the zenith of the misuse of that particular power. One person chooses some allegedly X, Y, Z, 10, 20, 30 MLAs and says, I am the boss of this party. The NCP may be lax. The NCP may have lots of people in and out of assembly. But for him, his self-declaration, self-anointment, and lo and behold, before that self-anointment, self-declaration is over, he is picked up and sworn in as a cabinet minister by the ever-waiting BJP, which first did exactly the same for Mr. Shinde. Number 2 facet is the hypocrisy, the utter hypocrisy of lampooning people on alleged corruption charges, making all kinds of, the kind of purple passages used, and then immediately becoming sleeping bedfellows with them. You can imagine the ethics word you use is an oxymoron. It's a funny word for you to use. Number 3, I think for a person who has so much respect in Maharashtra, and I can tell you one thing, irrespective of party, even BJP, even completely opposing parties in Maharashtra, one person who has special place in that politics is Sharad Pawar. Therefore, I don't think political perception anywhere is lacking in huge sympathy and support for the so-called Sharad Pawar group. He has, at the minimum, been much worse than Etu Brutus, stabbed badly in the back by people whom he has built up. And done in a obvious manner, not really by Ajit Pawar, not really by Shinde, but above all by the BJP machinery. These people are ultimately puppets. The master puppeteer is behind. The master puppeteer is not even the BJP. They are 1.5 or 2 people in Delhi. Now, therefore, given this political perception, now come between political to legal, the graded movement from there is that it is clearly an unconstitutional swearing in. It's clearly an unconstitutional installation. I was saying the other day, I heard this great remark by Mr. Shinde. This is a triple engine Sarkar now. It's a great remark. When your first 2 floors are illegal without a completion certificate, without an occupation certificate, you then brazenly, while living in that without occupation certificate, without building sanctioned house, build a 3rd floor illegally. That is the meaning of this triple engine Sarkar. In the first, matter, Everything barring one issue was held against them. Frankly, no moral authority, no so-called ethical responsibility lay after that first judgment. Now you've gone and built a new floor on an already unethical building. And you are talking of triple engine sarkar. So I think this swearing in is unconstitutional. Eventually, it will go to the courts. Eventually, the courts will have to rule on the core question whether this whole process was right. Before that, of course, you will have fracas in the election commission. You will have fracas about all these property, name, symbol, party, blah, blah. And there, I think, again, Mr. Ajit Pawar's group and the BJP support which is being generated for them are in for a nasty shock and surprise. You know, by any normal means of adjudication, the EC should never be holding a small group which self-declares itself as the party to be the real party without examining this huge bulk of lakhs of papers, members, taluk level chap, district level chap, state level office bearer, and the ordinary worker. It is now clearly held, as you know, in the Supreme Court. Not only in the earlier judgment of that matter in 90 or Sadiq Ali, but now in this more recent Shiv Sena judgment, that your basis of support or existence or identity as Nikunj is based not on the few MLAs whom you count, but is based on the overall party. So Mr. Nikunj cannot say, look, I have 20 MLAs with me, therefore I am the party, which is what is happening in front of you. Nobody has counted the lakhs of supporters which are out there who do not support Mr. Pawar. So I do not see any basis. And I hope I'm wrong. And I'm saying last point, I've spoken long enough, I'm sorry. I hope I'm wrong, but what I heard, and this is obviously based on, I may be wrong, that the EC, all this happened, I believe, on the 1st. No, on the 2nd. The EC today has suggested, and I'm not sure of the official part of it, that this all was filed before them on 30th. I was abroad, I came back on 2nd, I saw on TV Mr. Pawar mentioning specifically, on 3rd was it, that the leader of my party even today is Mr. Pawar, Sharad Pawar. And the election commission is apparently, allegedly informing us, subject to correction, and I'm putting these caveats, that on 30th, we, the EC, received these petitions. And thirdly, why on earth does the EC wait till the 5th to declare it? The information I have received is the EC has said that we received this complaint on 30th. The actual event happens on 2nd and 3rd. And the declaration of EC, why is the EC waiting for 5 days to declare it? Is this some kind of a strategic thing? So this is all, as they say, dal hi kali.
So, Dr. Singhvi, I was coming to that only, that Dali Kali, because the fact remains that in the last order also, the Supreme Court said that the Speaker must decide on these MLAs disqualification in a reasonable period of time. Now, that decision has not been taken. Now, today, again, what we saw, obviously, Mr. Ajit Pawar, despite all his claims, could not, at least on the face of it, clearly prove 2/3 of the party with him. Mr. Pawar still has the numbers which certainly do not rule him out of the game. So Mr. Ajit Pawar does not clearly have the 2/3 majority. Quite clearly, it is again going to be contested on the floor of the House in front of the same Speaker. Now, where does this leave us, Dr. Singhvi, legally speaking at least? The previous case is undecided. He has been chided. He has been rebuked by the Supreme Court. Now, again, it goes in front of the same Speaker. I mean, this looks to be a legal logjam as well.
You are partly answering your question yourself. I mean, our framers, as Ambedkar ji said, he said, the worst constitution will be excellent and good if the people who operate it are good. The best draft in writing will be bad if the people, you and I, who operate it are bad. Now, what do we do when the persona designata, as we call them, the sole person who's designated to decide defections is a speaker? Nobody else can decide. And if the speaker doesn't act as per law, as per 10th schedule, as per the spirit of the constitution, as per Supreme Court judgments, then what does one do? As they say, who will guard the guardians? Now, let's just step back. You forget this case of NCP. You know how much time has elapsed from the first Shiv Sena case? Do you know that? 2.5 months. I believe yesterday a petition has
Yes, indeed.
hardly 24 hours ago. Now, what does it show? Do you really believe that a person like Mr. Narvekar requires 75 days already and counting to even pick up the petitions and go anywhere near decision? As a matter of fact, if you were to decide tomorrow, if you were to start deciding tomorrow, it would still take a few weeks to decide. He hasn't even reached the stage. Now, if that is the timeline you are looking at, 2.5 months and counting, then clearly the name of the game in this also is delay, delay, delay. Now, for that, ultimately, the redressal will lie only in the courts. It will be taken. And I think courts are increasingly realizing that, look, this is all a farce and a fraud, that you decide something by non-decision. There is something known as deciding a thing by not deciding. That is what is happening with these speakers. It happened with the Manipur speaker. It got strictures. It has happened here. It is getting built up. And now it will be a third example in the, in the immediate context of this NCP Maharashtra issue, if there is no prompt proximate decision, which I have no hope for.
Dr. Singhvi, let's move on. And you said that this is an issue which is now in public domain and the challenge is also in public domain. Let's go to the ordinance in Delhi case, which the central government has brought in. Many would say overriding, or many would also say that, almost riding roughshod over the Supreme Court's judgment. So, of course, the Delhi government has gone into the court. You are the counsel. You had previously got them that victory. How do you see it moving forward, going forward from here? Because the Chief Minister on the one hand says that the actions being taken under the ordinance are quite clearly leaving his government completely infructuous.
Look, I will not like to go too much into the nitty-gritty because I am not only the counsel, but the matter is about to start. It has not yet started. So I don't want to get... Secondly, I never believe in being presumptuous about what a court may or may not do. But all I can talk to you about is the glaring, the absolutely mind-boggling infirmities in this initiative. I'll just rattle them off as point form and you can make your own judgment. You don't have to be a lawyer for that. I don't think your viewers have to be lawyers to understand this. Mind-boggling distortion. Again, by the same government who's the master puppeteer in Maharashtra. Number one, an ordinance is passed in the evening on Friday, the last working day of the court. The last working day of the court. I don't think this is a coincidence. As they say in that James Bond film, the first time it is happenstance, the second time it is coincidence, the third time it is enemy action. This is a James Bond dialogue. Now this is clearly a designed thing. 1 week before that last date, this judgment had come. You wait and you do it just to prevent judicial scrutiny because you know that the real courts, the bulk of the courts, the main people who decide these matters are not sitting. There is an ad hoc arrangement in the holidays in the courts. Number two, you tend to look at the judgment I succeeded in now, but there's an earlier judgment I had succeeded in 2018. There are two constitution-based judgments on the same issue. Now, in these two judgments, what are the pillars of what the court is saying? It is saying, look, ultimately 239AA, the part of the constitution which creates Delhi, is creating Delhi not as a union territory. Yes, it is not making it a state, but it is almost a state minus 3 powers. Now, the idea was to have a representative democracy. Namely, the people who elect you, Nikunj, as Chief Minister, you therefore have a right to betray them, to do bad governance, to be foolish, but they will be the judge next time to throw you out. I cannot sit in judgment and say, look, I will throw you out, Mr. Nikunj, because I, an external observer, believe that you are wrong. Yes, I can do it in some powers like president's rule and all that. That's different. But otherwise, this whole concept, so the people who elect you give you the right to govern well, but they equally give you the right to govern badly. Now, today that representative democracy has been turned on the head by the central government saying that after a second Supreme Court judgment based on the pillars of Westminster-style democracy, representative government, federalism, decentralization. After that judgment, you simply pass an ordinance saying all is nullified. The consequences are remarkable and quaint. I am the master. All my civil servants who are public servants, the word servant doesn't mean pejoratively, on the basis of which I, the master of a political sense, answer to the people, will be accountable not to me, but to an external chap called Mr. Nikunj sitting elsewhere. Can you ever govern your own house with your factotums if the factotums are answerable outside your house? Forget the government. One example, we got orders yesterday, a very significant interim order. Or, you know, the Delhi government has any number of boards, as every state has. Jal board, Women's Commission, this, that, I mean, so many things. Now, this ordinance, one of the collateral damages, there are many collateral damages. One collateral damage is that for all these boards, and we gave a list of 20 in the court yesterday, the appointment will be by the central government. I make the budget for the Delhi Jal Board, I make the budget for the Delhi Women's Commission, I make the budget for the Industrial Corporation of Delhi, I make the budget for so many things. I am responsible to do good governance in Delhi through them. Delhi Jal Board cleans Delhi, doesn't it? But the guy who will run it, the man who will be in charge of it will be appointed by somebody else. Now this is bizarre. In that case, the question arises, then why did you create 239 at all? Delhi was anyway, actually in the 60s, Delhi was not even virtually it was less than equal to a municipality. Keep it like that.
Yeah, it was a municipal commissionerate kind of arrangement.
Then you keep it like that. There's no problem. At least be frank and honest. You don't make a pretense of making a swan, and then inside you are making it a crow. And remember, it's not a union territory.
So you
makes it a state minus 3 powers. It gives it an assembly. It gives it a representative democracy. Elections are contested. It has a cabinet. Yes, no. If I entrench on your 3 powers, I can understand all this. There is no issue involved here of law and order, land, blah blah.
So you are essentially, as a political figure now, Dr. Singhvi, saying that this is a power grab by a political party which failed to win an election and therefore isn't able to digest it, and this is a political power grab.
I think you put it very clearly and pithily. There is a unfortunate, terrible intersection of infallibility and arrogance. Democracy means the right to win proudly. It also means the right to lose gracefully. I mean, there have been, after all, from 1975 years, everybody has lost. But has anybody behaved like this? This government apparently cannot digest any electoral loss. So you lose, and then you make the government in Goa. You lose Madhya Pradesh, you then make the government in Madhya Pradesh. You lose Karnataka, you make the government in Karnataka. You lose Maharashtra and you make a triple engine Sarkar, all 3 engines are illegal. Now this is what has happened in Delhi. In Delhi you lost so badly that you could not have defections. You know, I mean, it's 67 versus 3 or whatever is a ridiculous figure. So what you do is, you then do this thing because you know Delhi is not a full Maharashtra or a full Punjab. That we all concede. So you nullify the whole existence and identity of Delhi. I mean, the chief minister is far from being a king. He's not even a ruler, a democratic ruler, because he has no kingdom to rule, he has no state to rule. Everything which he does is going to be decided by the LG, which means the Home Ministry. So I think this is completely...
Essentially, the BJP says... Essentially, the BJP says that the Chief Minister doesn't know how to govern, but that question you have answered already, Dr. Singhvi, that his voters must decide, frankly, if he doesn't know how to govern, they will throw him out. Right?
I am assuming, Nikunj, that the Chief Minister doesn't know how to govern. He's a useless governor. He's an incompetent Chief Minister. He should not be there in the first place. I cannot say more than these 4 adjectives. Does that give you or me any right?
Absolutely.
Any right at all in the Constitution? Please throw him out next time. I mean, this is absolutely unheard of. This government feels that anything, they feel cheated if they lose an election. Now, that's not the approach. Be graceful. And just imagine what it is costing Delhi. If you fight every day, can you imagine any work being done? The files are moving back and forth. Also consider the plight of the
citizens like Delhiites like you and I are suffering. Delhiites like you and I are suffering, Dr. Singhvi.
Suffering is a mild word. You cannot, act with this kind of a. This is not two swords in one scabbard. It is multiple swords, supposedly in one scabbard, where one sword, the very elected chief minister, has got no power at all. Tomorrow he must place all the blame. Now, tomorrow, for example, I'm giving an example which I gave in court, so I can give it. There is a scheme by Mr. AP government, NCT government. Now, I am not a supporter. I'm not an opposer. I'm giving you a neutral fact. There's a scheme which gives you free power up to 200 units. Very well, if it makes Mr. Kejriwal bankrupt, he will suffer the next election. He should suffer next election if he makes the government bankrupt. But if it's a very popular scheme, can you get around the scheme by saying, I will appoint Mr. Nikunj as my chairperson? Because I know that through Mr. Nikunj, tomorrow I will abolish the scheme of 200 cheap power units. I mean, look at what you're doing to, apart from the fact that in this particular example, you are hurting the poorest of the poor. Apart from that, who gave you the right to decide all this? Through the circuitous route of appointing a chairman?
Absolutely, that's the question. That's the principal question, and I can't wish you luck as politician, Dr. Singhvi, but I certainly wish you luck as a barrister. May you fight for the spirit of the Constitution, as I would say it. Thank you very much.